So I've had the same conversation with 3 different people over the last year. One was a close personal friend. Another was a coworker that I don't work closely with. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen them since we had this conversation. And then the third person was an Uber driver who obviously I haven't seen since that Uber ride. Those conversations have all been along the lines of the other person sharing with me something like, I just started doing this new thing. I love doing it, but I don't have enough time to be great at it. And I wish I had started doing it when I was younger so that I would be so much better at it by now. In each case, what they're talking about is having a hobby. With my friend, they had just started writing poetry. My coworker had joined a rec soccer league. And I think the Uber driver was talking about making music or making beats. So even though what they were doing was different, the gist of the conversation was the same. And more importantly, the way that they felt about what they were doing was the same. And that stood out to me. Like, that's weird, right? That 3 different people at 3 different times came to me processing their lived experiences with hobbies in the same way. In any case, it makes me wonder if it's part of something bigger. And if it is, then this video is what I wish I would have said to those people in that moment, but didn't. If we haven't met before, I'm slow birding. I'm getting better at birding slowly, and I make videos for a living. Not these videos. These videos are on YouTube are a hobby, or at least they're like an extension of my birding hobby. And so most of this conversation is going to be framed around my personal experience birding and photographing birds, which are hobbies that I've only really taken up in the last couple of years. And why did I tell you about my day job as a videographer? Well, I want to establish a baseline that even though I literally use a camera to pay my mortgage and feel very confident in my skills as a generalist photographer, videographer, I still find my bird photography hobby to be really challenging. And so I'm assuming you clicked on this video because you're a bird photographer, and I want you to know that the hobby's hard and you're not alone. As a matter of fact, in the last week, I've gone out birding basically every night and just, really not come home with either the quality or quantity of photos that I feel like I should. Now, that doesn't mean that I was empty-handed or that I think the stuff was terrible. It just means that I expect more of myself. And I think oftentimes I beat myself up about it because it feels like that because I have a certain kind of day job that I should have more to show for it in my hobby. Like, I visited multiple hotspots at golden hour this week, and really thought I had the right ingredients for great photography, right? Good light, locations that there's known bird activity, and a time of day that the birds should be out moving about, right? And even so, I haven't been jazzed really about anything that I've come home with. And sometimes that's maddening because I'll randomly be driving and running errands with the kids and find a lifer. And the example here is the Eastern Kingbird, which I shot from my car window, and it's my most recent lifer. And this kind of thing happens like often enough where, yes, I make, totally decent photo and video. And it's like a reminder that I'm not totally hopeless, but it doesn't happen so often that I end up building any confidence. Instead, it feels like it turns into something else entirely. Have you heard of this? You've heard of this. Imposter syndrome phenomenon has been around since the late 70s. It's like this feeling where, despite all the evidence that you're capable and good at something, you still doubt your ability and worry that you're going to be exposed as a fraud. And when it comes to bird photography, I mean, this is really me in this season. Like I've got a good camera, the long lens. I'm wearing funny clothes out on the trail, and when I see strangers, they'll say things like, "How's it going, buddy? Thanks, likewise." And I'm just praying that they don't actually ask to see the photos on the back of my camera. And by the time that I get around to making a nice image, it often feels more like luck than any effort or commitment or skill that I put into it. So going back to that conversation about hobbies, I definitely relate to that feeling of like, man, I love this. I wish I started sooner. I'd be so much better at it by now. But here's the thing. I don't think any of us actually want to have started any sooner. birding wasn't even on my radar in my 20s. I think obviously it would have been nice to have started noticing birds back then, especially because we lived in New England at the time and there are tons of birds I could have seen or hotspots that we could have visited that'll be much harder to get to now that we have kids and live in Texas. But back then, I had a street photography hobby. And I played in wedding bands and working bands, and man, life was good. I had those hobbies that served me at that time. When I think about it, there was no space for birding. So when we say I wish I started sooner, I think what we mean is that I wish I could skip the part where I'm bad at this. And the real tension here, if you can sit with me with it, is that being bad at something is usually a prerequisite for being good at it. Now, it's not a guarantee that you'll be good at it. And of course, there are generational talents that break this rule. But in large part, being bad at something is absolutely necessary in order to be or become that person or do that thing that you want to. Should go without saying that I want to be a good birder and bird photographer. And to be totally clear, I don't expect that to happen overnight. I mean, I start every video with saying that I'm getting better slowly. My goal is to be good by the time that I'm 50, and then to hopefully be great by the time that I'm like 60 or 65 and heading into retirement on Galveston Island with a bright white set of oversized veneers and leathery skin just peeking through my shirt, you know, that whole look. So let's assume that you're a bit like me, minus the leathery skin and big teeth thing. That's a me thing. You're like people at the beginning of this video where you started something and you really enjoy it, but you're feeling a bit insecure about it, and maybe you're not seeing progress right at this exact moment. I want you to know two things that help keep me going whenever I'm feeling a bit down about myself. Number one is that you're already enough, and you always have been. Real gatekeepers, you know, tough guys are gonna disagree with me on this one, and that's okay. But I've got a real open table when it comes to what it means to be something. And I think obviously this is really influenced by being a parent, because my kids are artists, chefs, athletes, dancers, dinosaurs, not dinosaurs. Dinosaurs just for play. But I mean, everything else I mentioned, they are those things because they do those things. And I think so are you. If you write poetry, then you're a poet. If you play soccer, you're a soccer player. If you make beats, you're a beat maker. You don't need to get paid for doing that thing or receive external validation in order to be that thing. I've like rationalized it in my head with this like real Protestant work ethic meets Descartes of like, instead of I think, therefore I am, it's I do, therefore I am. And hear me out. If you do, then you are. And a big emphasis on the you do part, because that brings me to thing number two, which is the only way out of this feeling is to go through it. Like you have to feel the failure or embarrassment. In my case, you know, you have to come home with no photos or you know, things that I'm not totally stoked with. And then you have to just keep doing it. I think especially in creative fields, my experience has been that you just have to keep practicing in order to get better. And as someone who's battled with depression myself, I mean, I mean this in a real behavioral activation therapy sort of way, not like a pull yourself out by your bootstraps sort of way. Some days it's, you know, dragging yourself out of bed, doing it even though you don't want to, and it's not exactly super fun. But other days, and I think most days, are, you know, staying up so late because you can't sleep because you're just so stoked about it, and it's really fun. Regardless of where on any given day you're falling on that spectrum, you got to just keep showing up and keep doing it. And again, we're talking about hobbies, and so 7 out of 10 times it's gonna be fun and you're gonna enjoy regardless of the results. And that's a really cool thing about hobbies specifically. So don't talk yourself out of doing something and putting in the work, putting in the effort because of those 3 times that it doesn't work out. So here's where I'm going with all this. I think there's a real impulse in the human spirit that wants or even needs to be challenged, that in order to live a fulfilling life, we need to live out the hero's journey and in some small way experience the same adventure, transformation, and victory that we see in movies and TV. And hobbies are the way that we feed that part of ourselves. For those of us that are privileged enough to have them, are our opportunity for us to choose to do something that's not required of us in order to feel fulfilled. And again, I have to reiterate this point. In order for something to feel fulfilling, being challenging is a necessary part of that. So with my example of bird photography, even though it's often unpredictable and you're out in all sorts of weather, I mean, right now it's super hot outside. There's mosquitoes and ants and mud and dirt, and not to mention, in my case, the subjects I want to photograph aren't even there, or if they are there, they don't want to be anywhere near me in the first place. So with all of those challenges, and coming home with no photos, or end up culling a bunch of loser photos, bum photos, it's still worth it to me when I persevere long enough in order to come out on the other side with a photo that I am proud of. I know this photo has real synergy poster vibes, but I still like it. So if you're wrestling with a hobby right now, you're absolutely not alone. My advice is to go easy on yourself and remember to trust the process. Because at the end of the day, I think you're only required to be good at one thing. And I think that's being a good member of society. Like return your car to the grocery store, zipper when merging 2 lanes of traffic, and wipe the seat when you're done. And then take the liberty to be bad at basically everything else, because that's the only way that you're ever going to be good at it. Now, for better or for worse, I've chosen to try and get better at my hobby publicly. And so if this video has made you at all curious about my bird photography, YouTube is the only place you're going to find it. So please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, check out my other videos and shorts to see examples that I've been proud enough to share. In the comments below, let me know what you've been working on these days. I think especially if you're a birder or bird photographer, I would gladly take any advice that you have. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.